I started my career as a producer. I'm an attorney by training.
Yep.
I've made a career out of being the business end of things to creative people. We founded GoDigital in 2005 when we forecasted this paradigm shift from digital goods to, from physical goods to digital goods. And we were the first to monetize YouTube. We were the first to build digital supply chain for media in the cloud. We've been innovating in the financial markets for music for many years. And the current innovations that are needed are really financial and licensing and legal related.
Well, I mean, but you're seeing what these catalogs are selling for. It's like people have figured out that copyrights are gold, but they're only gold if there's a fence around them, right? So, as an attorney, as an entrepreneur, and as somebody who works with creatives, all right, so how do we go into this new era where some of the protections that you've built over the last 10 years, kind of in the pre-AI era?
So we like to take a stakeholder capitalism perspective on these things. We think that win-win.
We're in the right spot then here in Davos for that.
Completely. Yeah. We think that win-wins can be built for the entire ecosystem of AI companies, of creators, of end users. And what it really comes down to is creating certainty. Right? If you go look at the landscape of what's going on right now, there's tons of lawsuits, there's tons of ambiguity in the law and how people should be working together. And so we think there's an ecosystem approach. And I'd like to propose a framework for that I think is quite simple and very actionable that the industries could implement.
All right, so let's walk us through that.
So what it really comes down to are 6 things. First, we should think about AI in terms of inputs, that's training data, transforms, that's prompts, and the outputs of the generative AI. And we should think about that in the context of control. We should think about it in the context of credit and in the context of compensation. The 3 C's, control, credit, and compensation.
Yep.
Now, we should probably attack those one at a time.
Yep,
so starting with control, I think it's really important to begin with that courts continue to affirm the value of intellectual property. The copyright is, in fact, a fundamental right. Secondly, I think it's really important that legislators, wherever the market's inefficient, pass laws that create clarity. Thirdly, I think the industry and regulators need to work together. And where that really comes in are things like in search, for example. We've had a thing called a robot.txt file for 30 years.
Yeah,
right?
We've all seen it, not knowing what it meant. So.
Yeah, so it basically tells search engines how to crawl a website. And we should do something called an AI.txt file, that when AI companies are scraping data, it tells them what they can and can't use, what the licensing terms are, who they need to contact, all of the relevant details. We should create a public database of provenance information.
Yep.
Who owns what? As it goes through the supply chain from the human authorship, through training, through people creating new content using generative AI. And
well, one question, that sounds like a global need. It doesn't even sound like even if the U.S. did it, would that be enough? Because that sounds like something we would need to enforce around the world.
Ideally, we create standards as an industry that are adopted locally in every country. If you look at copyright, there are conventions that are 150 countries are members of, so it's very doable. I think the third piece is an industry collaboration with regard to control and credit, and that's we should build APIs between generative AI companies' platforms and copyright offices, so that the copyright office can evaluate when something qualifies for copyright and who those owners should be.
Right. So there's a lot of shoulds. So how do we get from should to do?
Well, I think it has to do with collaboration between between industry and regulators. I think in the third piece, which is compensation, probably the most interesting piece, there are very, very good precedents that we can rely on. So in the music publishing industry, for 100 years, they've had a value-sharing arrangement where when a broadcaster, a radio station, a television station wants to use music, they pay a share of their revenue into a pool, and it's shared among creators. And if you think about tech, they've also had a value-sharing arrangement. It's called stock options, right? They share value among the people that are creating that value. So I think from a compensation standpoint that these two industries, copyright owners and tech industry, should get together in a value-sharing arrangement, probably under a statutory licensing scheme. I think that the regulators in each country need to say, hey, there's 1 million creators, there's a handful of licensing generative AI companies that need to license this content. Creators, they don't have the capacity to negotiate with AI companies. AI companies don't have the capacity to manage 1 million.
It has to be done wholesale. It can't be done retail.
Yeah, so we need to create a body, if you will, like in the United States, 5 or 6 years ago, we created the Music Licensing Collective. There's a law called the Music Modernization Act that was passed, and it allows companies like Spotify and YouTube and Google, instead of paying 2 million publishers, to pay one licensing collective who then pays all the publishers. We can do that with generative AI, and everybody can share in the value.